We were all learning new things during time of COVID. I do a lot of public speaking, but doing this from home is a whole new deal. The prepping and delivering content is the same, but doing video with no audience is a whole new deal. Making videos makes me feel like I'm in 7th grade woodshop with my first circular saw all over again. I'm making way too many cuts, I'm wasting a lot of wood, and I'm making a birdhouse only my mom can be proud of. So with that, let's go. Today, I want to talk about digital identity in the context of healthcare. As we all know, healthcare costs consume 50% or more of provincial and federal budgets, and costs are increasing all the time. Healthcare is not really about money, however. We will spend the money we need to take care of everyone. But it is also true that it does not go and get paid for in a vacuum. Increased costs in healthcare mean less dollars for other government programs. The question is, can we improve healthcare outcomes with digital identity while also lowering costs for healthcare overall? I submit to you that the answer is yes. Today, our healthcare data lives on a server we can't get to. It's air-gapped. And that is for good reason, because all of the types of information we can put on the internet, healthcare data is the most sensitive. The duty of care is highest. The truth is, the tools to do this safely are just not there yet, but they're coming. But if we could sort out the identity, security, privacy, and consent pieces to put healthcare online, I would argue we could both improve outcomes and lower costs. We can improve outcomes because people could see and manage their own information. In every other part of our life, we can do this already. We will be better equipped to navigate and advocate in our own personal healthcare journey and that of our family. This includes the ability to selectively share data in all of our future healthcare interactions with our providers, labs, researchers, and family. We will no longer have to recite our complete medical history at each new healthcare service that we want to use. This is costly to do, and as patients, we don't always remember it right. With greater data access, health outcomes can be achieved more quickly. This is better for healthcare outcomes and reducing costs. Time is the enemy of so many untreated conditions, and it can increase the treatment cost dramatically. So with this as a backdrop, I want to show you why you can't have digital health without digital ID. Let me tell you the answer now. The answer is because there is a trust gap. My name is Boysen, and I am the Chief Identity Officer at Secure Key Technologies. Let's get into it. I want to take you back to the year 1950, to the time before credit cards. In 1950, if there was a TV in the window in the local shop and you wanted to buy it, there were 3 choices on the menu for how to pay for it. Choice number 1 was to pay cash. Maybe you had the money in your wallet. But it was more likely you didn't have enough money with you to pay for the TV. The next choice on the menu was to pay by check. However, if the merchant didn't know you, they weren't going to take your check. The third choice on the menu was to get a line of credit from that merchant. Now, in 1950, large merchants did offer lines of credit, but the smaller merchants didn't. We're in 1950, and so consumers might have 1 line of credit, maybe 2, and in an extreme case, maybe 3. So what was happening is the smaller merchants couldn't get you to buy the TV because offering you a line of credit became an obstacle to the sale. And so what we have in 1950 is these twin forces of friction that are preventing the economy from moving forward. With merchants, they only selectively accept checks. They will only take checks from the people they know. Consumers, on the other hand, might have 1 or 2 lines of credit, but they won't take lines of credit from the smaller merchants. And so we have these twin forces of friction that are stopping the economy from moving forward. So in 1950, the first credit card was introduced. Take a look at the sales pitch they have on the screen here. It's really quite remarkable. 15,000 charge accounts, 1 monthly bill, 1 check for all the charges, 1 credit card. Consumers love this idea. From a consumer point of view, it meant they could have a single payment instrument and use it at lots of different merchants, and they don't have to write 1 check at the end of the month, and they didn't actually have to reconcile their checkbook at all. They loved this idea. Merchants loved it too. The smaller merchants now didn't have the line of credit as an obstacle to selling the TV. So these two forces combined to change the economy in a very profound way. And so what's also interesting is when you look at the screen on the right, what they called it. They called it the credit identification card. So this transformed the economy because it closed the trust gap that existed between consumers and merchants. And so when you think about what's happening with credit cards from 1950 to today, it's quite remarkable. In 1950, we paid with a piece of paper. Now, the problem was, from a merchant point of view, copying numbers off a piece of paper was slow. And crooks also figured out how to make the piece of paper pretty quick. So we quickly moved to embossed cards. What was good about embossed cards is that they were harder to forge and also sped up the transaction. And over time, the crooks figured out how to make an embossed card, so we moved to magstripe. Magstripe sped up transactions again, and it was also good defense against forgeries and fraud for a period of time. But eventually we had to move to chip card. And chip card has been a remarkable innovation. Of all of those innovations, it's the ones that has lasted the longest. And what's also interesting about it is that it's got the most sophisticated security features, and so consumers don't have to know a lot or understand a lot of the security model for it to be successful. The only problem with the card we have today, however, is it doesn't work on the internet. And so we've seen the emergence of the ability to pair your card with your phone, and now you can pay with your phone. And what's neat about paying with your phone is the way you pay in person and the way you pay online is the same. So what we can learn from this is that the user experience is the security. The way we pay for things has barely changed in 70 years. And so what's good about this is we don't have to train people about how to use credit cards. We have a universal model that's used by all the global payment brands, so that as a consumer, I can take my credit card to any merchant on the planet, no prior relationship, and get what I want. This is not how the internet works. In the internet, we have breaches every second day. And because of that, we're constantly changing the way we sign up for services or pay for things. And the problem is consumers can't keep up. It started with user IDs and passwords, and that led to a whole set of problems. And so we moved to SMS. SMS is the answer. And over time, SMS got compromised, and so now, no, we're going to do selfies. Selfies is the answer. And we're changing the user rituals so often, users can't keep up, and I would argue it's actually increasing the attack surface. So I think we can learn from this in identities. We've got to make the experience super simple. The user experience is the security. The other things that make the digital payment systems work well are these things that I have on the right. We've talked about the simple user ritual already. What's also important is that as a consumer, I'm willing to carry around my credit card because it serves me in so many places. When you contrast that with a loyalty card, by example, it's a very different thing. I'll carry my credit card because it serves me in lots of places. I won't carry a loyalty card because it makes my wallet fat, and I can only use it in one place. So we need to learn that users will only carry some things around. It's also important to see the trusted network feature of the payment system. As a crook, I can't pop up in the middle and say, hey, I'm a crook, I take Visa. I have to, as a merchant, I have to apply to get in the network, and I have to behave well to stay in the network. And so that solves the problem that we have on the internet of man-in-the-middle attacks, where the consumer doesn't know if they're talking to the website, and the service doesn't know if they're really talking to me. Another cool feature is this motivation to recover concept that payment cards have. When I lose my Interac card, I will call my bank right away. I call my bank not because I promised them I would. I don't care about the bank. I care about me. I'm terrified the crook is spending my money and I'm going to be responsible. So as a consumer, when my card's not there, I will notice quickly and do the right thing out of self-interest. And this provides an amazing integrity benefit because now when I lose the card, I report it, which means the crook who found it can't do anything with it. And then we have a ubiquitous acceptance mark. You got your Visa card from your favorite bank and I got mine from my favorite bank. But when we go to the merchant, I don't see my bank's logo, I see Visa's logo. And that's an acceptance mark. So as a consumer, I understand this thing I got from my bank, I can use it at the merchant. And then there's issuer choice. I can start with Bank 1, and if over time I don't like Bank 1, I can move to Bank 2 if they give me a better offer. I think we can learn from that. So what does this teach us about digital health? Well, we actually have a trust gap in digital health. We know how to deliver services in person. This isn't an issue. The challenge becomes when we're on the internet. Here we have Annie. She has type 1 diabetes. Her mom is going to have to manage her healthcare journey for her till she's an adult herself. And so Annie needs to be able to get access to her electronic health record, and then she's got to be able to go to the lab. And later at home, her mom's going to want to check her lab results to see if her blood glucose is okay. She may also want to be able to submit data from her blood glucose meter and put it back into the lab or to the healthcare system so the doctor can see what's going on at home. In addition, Annie's mom's got her own healthcare journey to navigate as well. So if we're going to do this, we can't really do it based on user IDs and passwords. So as I've said, we have this trust gap. Now, I would argue that we can't solve the digital health problem with a digital ID scheme that works for health alone. And that's for two reasons. The first is that's actually what we have already. And what we can see is not many services are moving online because it's too dangerous. So user IDs and passwords for the healthcare system only are not likely to succeed because that's what we have already and it's not going to get any better. The second reason is when you think about the patient population, we have two different populations. We have half the population that uses the healthcare system very frequently, and the other half that uses it almost never. And so the challenge is that for those who use it every day, maybe they won't forget the password, but they still may find the online experience too complex. And for the people who do get the internet, the challenge is maybe they're not using it all the time. So when they come to access the healthcare system, they're going to forget the password. What we can't do is have doctors and nurses and hospital admin staff doing password resets. It's not a good use of their time, and it's super expensive. And as we all know, password resets anywhere are a pain in the butt. COVID has a lot to teach us in this time of trying to figure out how to make digital identity better online. During pandemics, remote triage is vital in healthcare. We need to find a way to assess people from home. For people who have COVID, we want to be able to do that assessment and get them into the hospital so they can get the proper care. And there's other people who need to access hospital services but don't have COVID, and we need to keep these people separate. And so we need a way to link the triage we've done from home with the person who shows up at the hospital, and that's going to require digital ID. We need digital identity for healthcare, and we need it for the rest of the economy too. So it makes sense that we use the same infrastructure. The other thing COVID teaches us is that the day of passing documents over the counter are quickly coming to an end. Post-pandemic, we're going to have this problem that when people show up at the counter and I want to get a service, the person on the other side of the counter is giving me the hairy eyeball wondering if I've got COVID. So they don't want to handle my documents. As a consumer, on the other side, I'm also worried about getting my documents back. I'm worried about the 100 people who have already been at that counter that day, and I'm wondering if my documents are infected now. So what this leads us to is the inescapable conclusion is that we're going to have Touch ID in our future. We're going to have a very different experience for doing registrations. And so we can learn from this because pandemics, we for certain need Touch ID, but when you think about the internet, that's also going to be touch-free ID. And what a good touch-free ID does is works in person, works on the phone with the call center, and it works online too. And if we do it really well, we can do handoffs from paper transactions and make them digital. Security has been working on the digital identity problem for over a decade. Our first service was launched in 2012, which was called Secure Key Concierge. And it was a way for you to reach government to access online services more quickly for you and more cost-effective for government. And during the pandemic, government's Canadian Emergency Response Benefit was deployed very quickly compared to other countries because Canada had the infrastructure to allow Canadians to quickly access government services online and receive their payment. But we also have another service that we launched in May 2018 called Verified Me. Verified Me is designed to be a digital identity service for consumers that works right across the economy. And for business, it's cost effective It provides a better consumer experience and provides a higher integrity result, so you have greater confidence in the identity proofing that you're doing online. And we have many great examples of this service in use already. It's being used in commerce, it's being used in insurance and in financial services. And what I want to focus our discussion on today is using it for healthcare. Before I get into that, however, I want to make you aware of a white paper that we're going to be releasing shortly. It's called A Primer and Action Guide to Decentralized Identity. We've produced this with our partners, One World Identity. And as you think about moving your digital service online and planning out your roadmap of what features when, it's a great handbook to have by your side so you can think about what order you want to do things in. It's going to be published on our social media channels, and you'll be able to find it on our website soon. So I encourage for you to look for it there. In the presentation yesterday at end of day, an innovative project was presented by Sheem Pavlovic, who's the CIO for Niagara Health. And he was accompanied by Rob DeVries, who's the ADM for the Cabinet Office in Ontario, along with Joe Mayer from Identos, our partner, and our CEO, Greg Wolfond. And they demonstrated what digital health could look like for patients when they want to access services at their local hospital. And I'm not going to go through the demo because you saw it there, but what was important is that for the first time, Canadians can use simplified infrastructure to access healthcare online. You choose your favorite bank and I can choose mine, and we can use this as a way to prove who we are to get access to the services we want. And you do this the same way you do for online banking every day. And having done that, you can link it to your health information. So Ontario's done a good job of standing up a service that allows you to link your identity information from your bank together with your healthcare card. Now, this is done with privacy by design, so only the information that needs to be shared between the parties is shared to get the integrity result we require to make sure it's you that's accessing your healthcare records. So we're providing privacy and consent as part of the journey, but we're not asking the user to enter any information. We're just showing them what's happening, and they can decide and agree if they want to continue. So 4 different hospitals in Ontario decided to use the same infrastructure and partner with Sheem to make this happen. So it's a holy moly moment for digital healthcare in Canada. We've got broad-based infrastructure that can be used right across Ontario and eventually right across the country to give Canadians direct access to their healthcare information. Here's another great example of how that same pattern can be used in another use case. Sun Life is a group benefits and financial product service provider in Canada. In the case of group benefits, they had a problem. Andre is an employee at SecureKey, and I get group benefits. The challenge is that I don't really deal with Sun Life that often, although I value the service they provide very highly. I only submit dental claims or claims for my glasses once or twice a month at the most. And so the challenge is sometimes I'm going to forget the password. And so Sun Life was having this challenge is that every time I forgot the password, I had to call them on the phone. And so they're doing their identity proofing over and over again. So their prior generation of service, proving that Andre is Andre and he works for SecureKey, could take them up to a week for that to happen. And now they can do this in 3 or 4 minutes. And this has been transformative. Their costs are lower. Their integrity result is higher. Their confidence that it's really me. And the experience for me as one of their customers is actually improved. Here's another great example, DynaCare. DynaCare provides blood and lab services in Ontario and other parts of the country. And if I want to see my lab results after being in the doctor in the morning, today the choices are either go to the lab directly or wait to go see my doctor. Now DynaCare can use our digital identity service so that as a patient I can sign up and get my blood results as soon as they're available. And in times of COVID, this could be very, very important. Knowing the result of my COVID test is going to be something that I'm going to want to know right away. If I'm sick, I'm going to want to get to the hospital more quickly. And if I'm not sick, I'm going to be super happy to be able to get a quarantine and start expanding my range of places that I can go. North Shore is a group of practitioners out here in British Columbia where I live. And what they wanted to do is be able to move doctor visits online. They wanted to automate the intake process of bringing patients into their practice. And they also wanted to have the capability of being able to do doctor visits online and also being able to communicate with their patients electronically. So using Verified Me, they were able to make this service easy for their patients, and it's also very cost effective for their practice. So that is why you can't have digital health without digital ID. I told you the answer at the beginning. The healthcare trust gap is holding us back. I think we made the case for healthcare to participate in a larger scheme rather than doing a silo scheme for healthcare only. I showed you 4 great use cases of how digital identity is making a difference for healthcare today. And I think we all realize now that our current mechanism of passing documents over the counter is not going to be the way we do it in the future. We're going to move to a scheme of doing touch-free ID. And so that's what Verified Me is all about. It's national infrastructure that works for Canadians right across the economy. It's going to work for healthcare, and it's going to work for the rest of the economy too. That's my time, and thanks so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thanks.